Showcasing the latest advances in technology, engineering, and combat capabilities, fighter jets represent the pinnacle of military aviation.
How close did we come to disaster when Russian jets crossed paths with American bombers and threatened to turn the skies into a powder keg? This Russian-US face-off was nothing but electrifying. It all started when a massive American B-52 bomber cut through the sky. This aircraft was old, older than many of the crew members flying it, but age had not made it obsolete. Built in the 1950s, the B-52 had been updated time and again, fitted with modern avionics, radar systems, electronic countermeasures, and communications gear that made it a weapon still relevant in the 21st century. From the ground, it looked slow and lumbering. From the cockpit, it felt endless. Its wings stretched so far that they dwarfed almost any aircraft nearby. It was not built to be graceful, it was built to intimidate, to remind adversaries that America could deliver its arsenal anywhere on the globe. The crew inside knew the mission. Fly steady, stay calm, keep the course. But they also knew that every time a B-52 flew near Russian airspace, something would happen. They had seen it before, and they expected it. The first sign came on their radar screens. Blips appeared, small at first, then sharper, moving fast. Somewhere on the ground, Russian radar stations had picked them up. Somewhere in a control room, officers had issued the order. Engines had started, pilots had sprinted to cockpits, and within minutes, Russian fighters had clawed their way off the runway and were climbing hard toward them. For the Russians, it was not optional. When a foreign bomber appeared close to their airspace, even if it remained over international waters, they were expected to respond. Scramble orders were routine, but the adrenaline that came with them was anything but. Pilots who had been sitting idle in their flight suits, sometimes for hours, suddenly found themselves strapped in, afterburners roaring, the G-forces pushing them back in their seats as they climbed. They knew exactly what they were chasing. The B-52 was so large on radar that it appeared almost like a floating city.
We have seen Turkey's TF-Khan project, South Korea's KF-21, India's HAL AMCA, and China's J-20 and J-31. Thus far,
as they closed the distance, the encounter became personal. The bomber appeared ahead, a gray behemoth cruising through the sky, steady and unmoving. The fighters approached with a very different kind of energy. Aircraft like the Su-27, Su-35, or MiG-31 were designed to be fast, agile, capable of climbing sharply and making hard turns that a bomber could never dream of matching. They were hunters, sleek and dangerous, and they were tasked with getting close enough to show presence, but not so close as to spark an incident. When they arrived alongside the bomber, the air changed. American crews could see them clearly now, sliding into formation nearby. Sometimes the jets came within a few hundred feet, close enough to make eye contact through the glass canopies, close enough to recognize helmets and movements. The bombers held their line, steady and deliberate. The fighters hovered, moved slightly forward, then back, letting the message sink in. You are being watched. You are not invisible. This sky is not yours alone. The pilots on both sides treated it as routine, but the risk was undeniable. At those speeds, with machines that large, the margin for error was razor thin. A miscalculated maneuver could send metal colliding in midair, with catastrophic results. In some past encounters, Russian fighters had come so close that the turbulence shook the bomber itself. Imagine sitting in the cockpit of a giant aircraft and feeling it shudder because another machine had just screamed past at supersonic speed within 100 feet. Every move mattered. Every hand on the controls had to remain steady. Sometimes these encounters turned into contests of electronic warfare. Signals were jammed, radars surged with activity, and systems flickered in and out as each side pushed to expose weaknesses. It was a contest fought with precision, not weapons, but everyone knew how quickly it could slip into chaos if a single pilot lost control. For the Russian pilots, every flight carried the weight of national defense. Their doctrine demanded that any approaching bomber be treated as a possible threat. They moved with sharp discipline, making it clear that Russian skies would never be approached without a challenge. Their presence was both a warning and a statement, a visible shield guarding their territory. On the American side, the mission demanded patience and composure. Crews were expected to maintain steady flight paths, never flinch under pressure, and avoid any reaction that might be read as weakness. Their task was not only to fly, but to embody the assurance that the United States could assert its reach in international skies at will. Each side understood the high stakes. Every maneuver was layered with meaning, every signal loaded with intent. It was a duel of discipline, carried out under the constant shadow of escalation. Encounters like this were not new. During the Cuban Missile Crisis in the early 1960s, American bombers flew almost constantly, and Soviet interceptors shadowed them at every turn. The 1980s were filled with daily confrontations. Some ended with aircraft flying within mere feet of one another, pushing the limits of safety. Others involved tense words over radio channels, professional but edged with warning. After the Soviet Union collapsed, the skies grew quieter. But by the 20s and beyond, the encounters returned. Rising tensions brought the routine of intercepts back to life. The Arctic, the Baltic, and other regions where borders blurred into international airspace became hotspots once again. Each encounter followed a familiar pattern, yet the tension never went away. The bomber was never going to turn back, and the fighters were never going to ignore it. The steps repeated themselves almost like a ritual. Scramble, climb, intercept, shadow, depart. What seemed predictable was always shadowed by the weight of history, each pass a reminder that the rivalry had never truly ended. Familiarity did not make it safe. A wrong signal, a delayed response, or a single miscalculation could shift control into crisis. Pilots carried that pressure every second, knowing that one small error in judgment could ignite something far larger than the encounter itself. The routine carried on, but behind it was the constant awareness of risk. At the center of this drama was the B-52. Though one of the oldest aircraft still flying in active service, it remained unmatched in what it could do. It could fly close to 9,000 miles without refueling, stay in the air for hours on end, and deliver 70,000 pounds of bombs if needed. Its endurance made it more than a machine. The B-52 was a symbol. To rivals, it stood as a challenge, proof of American reach. To allies, it carried reassurance, a visible statement that the United States still had both power and presence in the skies. The Russian fighters represented the other side of that coin. They were faster, sleeker, built for sharp maneuvers and rapid response. They carried the message that Russia would always rise to meet intruders. When they slid into formation beside the bomber, the encounter became almost ritual. a demonstration of strength from both sides, carried out without words. There was something unspoken between the pilots, a quiet recognition that beneath the politics and the theater, they were professionals sharing the same sky. Sometimes a clipped word came across the radio. A brief acknowledgement, no more than a phrase or two. Not friendly, but respectful. Both sides understood what was at stake. Both sides carried the burden of preventing escalation. But incidents had occurred in the past where restraint nearly broke down. In some cases, jets had flown dangerously close, forcing bombers to rock in their turbulence. In others, electronic warfare had pushed systems to their limits. Each time, the line between intimidation and disaster was paper-thin. The reality was that these encounters were not about the individual pilots or even the aircraft themselves. They were about the broader picture. They were demonstrations staged for audiences beyond the cockpit windows. Russia scrambled fighters to show its citizens and its rivals that its skies were defended. America flew bombers near those skies to show the world that its reach was global. Every intercept was a move in a larger game of strategy and influence. And the game was evolving. Russia invested in new interceptors, stealth capabilities, and advanced air defense networks. Its electronic warfare systems grew more sophisticated, designed to blind and confuse intruders before they could even approach. The United States, on the other hand, kept the B-52 alive with endless upgrades. The outside remained the same, but inside it became something different altogether, packed with technology that kept it relevant in modern warfare. What made it human, though, was the fact that inside every aircraft were men and women whose lives hung in the balance. Some were young, barely out of their training years. Others were seasoned veterans. For the Russians, it was about defending their country. For the Americans, it was about projecting their nation's reach. For both, it was about navigating encounters where one wrong move could spark a conflict larger than themselves.
Readiness. In that context, the B-52 patrol became more than just a flight.
That was why these interceptions always captured attention. They were not just maneuvers. They were not just military routines. There were moments when the weight of nations rested in the hands of pilots thousands of feet above the earth. Every intercept was a reminder that the Cold War might have ended on paper, but in the skies it lived on, transformed into a quieter but no less dangerous contest. So while the world below moved on with its daily rhythm, high above, bombers and fighters circled each other, locked in a ritual that balanced between routine and crisis. From the ground, the sky looked peaceful. But up there, every encounter carried the possibility of disaster. The Cold War was over, but the cold skies remained alive, contested, and full of tension. The game continued, the stage was endless blue, and both sides played their part, watched by the world, even when most people did not realize it. That's all for today's video. Thank you for watching till the end. How do you think this interception should have ended? We want to hear from you, so please leave your comments down below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell so you don't miss what comes next. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.